Greetings once again, beloved multiversal soul familia. Yes, indeed, we are back again. And things were going so well with the Rose Oracle. I figured we could bring it back again for a bit more. So, here we are, and here we go, with the courage and strength necessary to face all the challenges that are before us. Wrapped all within the original creator's bandwidth. Giving thanks, showing gratitude, being on board with the law of reciprocity, equal give and take, omni love, so it is, so it is, so it is. Let's see what's in store once again from the Rose Oracle for a little bit of storytelling. Give it a nice good shuffle, and as you can see, we have a couple of cards really sticking out here with the possibility of repeats, because I did place the cards from this morning's, well, earlier this morning's message. Let's see here. We have not any repeats so far. What we have is We Are Nature and the Mystic Rose. So it would be the Mystic Rose, the first to be face down on the table if those cards would have came completely out on their own. Well, I mean, not on their own, but you know what I mean. Like, if they would have came completely out and landed on the table. The Mystic Rose, compassion, devotion, humility, humanity, and grace. Now, this is the second time this morning we're seeing devotion. Now, I'm not so sure where the definition of that would exactly change. So the majority of you know what devotion is. I mean, maybe it's not so safe to assume. Love, loyalty, enthusiasm, proactiveness. It can mean worship, but not necessarily is it that I'm promoting. more like observances here. And before I go into the book, a dime was just dropped for me. The significance of not so much about being more observant, but being observant with a bit more grace. Now I know that this message is made for me, but it is also meant for you at this time. What could you be a bit more compassionate about? Who could you think of, or what situation, so on and so forth, could you possibly observe with just a little bit more grace? The mystical rose. Oh, the mystic rose. I said mystical. Okay. 96. That's an interesting number. As each number is the other number in reverse. Like a yin and yang. So this is giving devotion to balance is extremely significant at this time. Oh, goodness. So I'm hearing, don't get so caught up in creating balance that you get lost in the cause or lost in the souls. Speaking of, I have some delicious Thai sweet chili sauce, as I also have some honey over here on my plate with my hash browns. The combination is so good with the chili sauce and the honey and the potato. Anyways. So devotion can even begin as like a small practice that creates bigger windfalls. like something that seems so minute and small, but the impact could be like gargantuous. Like, I don't even remember, it's been so long since I've used that word, if it even really is a word, or did it ever become a word, or what even is that? And here we are trying to get off that hamster wheel of just randomly creating all these words. But yet this morning I'm like, oh, let's create acronyms, and yesterday let's create acronyms, and no, there's something much deeper, beloveds, that we're supposed to be. Well, I mean, I can't really say you, but I'm definitely feeling this reading, this message, rather, this story unfolding. Having unbridled devotion towards something that may have seemed so small at first, but could have such a grand, I mean grand, impact, but towards this positive feedback loop. So, to know devotion, we should probably understand the verbiage, the etymology. To commit by a solemn act. So it has to be sincere, or it's likely going to be, at minimum, less effective, if not ineffective. And there's also a secondary etymology, to give or direct time, money, effort, your heart. And this is to your life purpose, beloveds. Which seems to be, as a forever student teacher, and I love this verbiage, the examples, and I'm going to put my own little spin on it. A portion of our lives as the student asking the questions. A part of our lives being devoted to taking questions, but also not so much about being the lecturer, or the lecturer. However, implying compelling motives and often attachment to an objective, a study, an art, an investment, and in this case, a soul investment, beloveds. Not soul as in independent, S-O-L-E, but soul, S-O-U-L. The part of us that signed up to be here in this human body having this human experience. Dedicated, consecrated, attributed to a intrinsic sanctity and that new earth agenda sounds pretty darn good to me. But I'm not going to be throwing those words around too much, as it's not the only kind of content that I share here. So, the Mystic Rose, encouraging us to soften towards humanity and to endeavor to see the world and even those who have hurt us with understanding, an open heart, and deep humility, to see that we all carry hurt and are wounded. We have all experienced severing. This card is inviting us to open our heart to humanity when we most want to close. And the inquiry is, how are you being called to show compassion today? We are nature. Becoming grounded, embodiment, living in connection. Number 138. We build a world on top of the world. If you look up the word nature in a dictionary, you'll see a reference to plants, animals, and landscapes. As opposed to humans. We speak of getting into nature or getting grounded or something we need to do. We've forgotten that we don't exist in nature. We are nature. Indigenous earth-based traditions have always seen the planet and all beings as interconnected and sacred, humans as one with the earth itself. The earth and Mother Rose are calling us back to the earth to weave the sacred back in, to weave nature back into the center of our everyday lives, to see ourselves as nature, and to spend more time interacting with the living nature, living natural world, returning to nature. How's your connection with nature? What's your relationship with your own body? How can you live in a more grounded way? This card is an invitation to develop a deeper connection with the earth, to actively spend time with the physical, natural world around you, to tend it, and take your place as a custodian of it, to see the sacred in all of life, to notice the changing seasons around you and within you, and to remember that you too are part of the earth's ever-changing landscape. To remember that you are nature and that you'll always find your true nature in nature. To embrace your body as your home and the planet as your mother. And the soul inquiry of this card is, how can you connect more deeply with nature and your own true nature? And how can you return more to the earth? What can you give back to the planet for the fruits that it has laid as an offering for you, beloveds? When we're connected to nature, we're connected to spirit. And when we're connected to spirit, we're connected to Source, the greatest architect, the OG, original, one and only creator. And when we stay on board and adherent to that connection with Source, we are connected also with our soul and our soul agreements to be in alignment with that. And the embodiment, as well as the acceptance of it. Yes, that is a lesson that has been placed on my heart, likely to assist and guide, some of my own situations. But in a state of being where me, my, and I rarely exist, but do still peek out from time to time, focusing on us. If there's a golden nugget, a teachable moment, an insight that is harmless and useful and of value, I most certainly will be a messenger adherent to that in support of the enlightenment of all beings living in connection. Ooh. Okay. I was hoping at some point this card would come out again, and I felt led to pick up the deck and look at what is at the bottom of the deck. Is these human experiences are not only about one side or the other, or this, that, and the other. All are sacred. Sacred masculine, honor, protection, and support. This is more, I would take this more as like an analogy. As in our original form, the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, all of this wasn't even relevant. But in this 3D earthly construct, it is. Until it isn't. Sacred masculine, honor, protection, and support. Brothers of the Rose. Number 64. And the inquiry for this card is, how are you being called to work with the sacred masculine? This is a card of the sacred masculine, like the feminine. The sacred masculine exists within each one of us, and together we're all being called to balance both energies within us. The sun and the moon, solar and lunar. Perhaps this is what it means to birth a new world. Keep in mind to take all of this verbiage and dialogue with a grain of salt. Not literal. Okay, moving along. The sacred, mature masculine is something so needed in our world. It is the part of us that lives in deep honor and reverence of the feminine. It recognizes the goddess within all of life, including the earth, and is committed to protecting and living in devotion to the feminine. The sacred masculine knows that striving and overpowering, enduring and conquering are not helpful. The sacred masculine is strong and tender, protective but not defensive. This card be a sign that you're being called to work on the sacred masculine energy within you that's maturing and rising. It could be that you're being called to work on ancestral healing of the paternal line. It could be an indication that you're being called to invoke or acknowledge the sacred masculine in those around you. Or it could represent the sacred masculine appearing in your life. The sacred masculine exists within all of us. They are encircling you so that you can do your sacred work, so that you can be part of the return of the goddess on this earth. Metaphorically speaking, for the remerger of the illusion of the separation of the two. The rose is the emblem, and wear it proudly on our hearts. Oh, wow. And the card right behind that was the wastelands. And this woman in this pose reminds me somewhat of myself. When I had my hair colored, when I used to dye it darker. No BS, interestingly enough. Like, I almost wish I could flip her over to be like, hey, are you me? No, I'm kidding. How curious is that, though? The wastelands, sustainability, slowing down and tending to your garden. That has been a major theme all throughout the entire, I would say from November of last year, all the way up until present time. That particular message is a message all on its own. Tend to your own garden. But yeah, heavy on the theme. All the way into the now and the present day. Do you know what it means to tend to your own garden? Well, let's have a little bit more fun with the verbiage. Tending to your garden involves several things. Regular maintenance, beloveds, as well as seasonal care for, well, the knowing that there's a season for everything. Being open enough and optimistic to be okay with being regular in some kind of ways, but also with the seasonal care. The approach changes based on the season. Functional, situational, So interesting. This is giving Voltaire. Beautiful. Oh, I see. Oh, see, they were an advocate of having a garden variety of Enlightenment ideals. Oh, what is it that I see here? Freedom of religion, separation of church and state, and freedom of expression. Other sources perceived to be intolerance, unfettered dogma, and overall stuffiness. Life is bristling with thorns, and I know no other remedy than to cultivate one's garden. How candid. Yes? Quite the philosophy. The wastelands. I am currently looking up the page number. Okay, 136. The inquiry for this card is, what way of being is no longer sustainable for you? There is this French myth in the form of a poem, elucidation, that tells the story of a king who abuses the land he's supposed to be the guardian of. Oh, I'm sure we've all had that one protector, regardless of the connection. The king breaks the trust of the well maidens, the spirits who were guarding the wells of the land, and they flee. The water runs dry, the plants wilt, and the land, which was once rich and fertile, becomes barren, creating a wasteland. This, beloveds, is the most powerful card in the deck. It's a wake-up call for us to stop the destructive behavior that's resulting in us becoming brittle and unable to live in a sustainable way. The sacred feminine is abundant. She knows that the earth can provide for what we need and that she doesn't need to take more than she needs. She tends the earth around her and within her. She's the keeper of balance and the protector of all things. The rose has seen civilizations come and go, empires rise and fall. In this case, she's delivering an urgent message to slow down and stop any way of being that's not sustainable, to release anything that's making us brittle, to tend our garden, our bodies, and the earth around us. And again, the sole inquiry for this card is, what way of being is no longer sustainable for you? I will leave you with that question. You can either keep those answers to yourself, or you can feel free to share in the comments upon your own free will. Yes, and thank you so very much for tuning in, beloved multiversal soul familia. With much gratitude and appreciation. If you made it this far, you are a rock star. Keep unfolding, and brightest blessings.